UnFrosted. This is a new Netflix movie directed by Jerry Seinfeld. And I was kind of interested in this movie until I wasn't. Let me explain. So, I really love Jerry Seinfeld. I'm just going to get that out of the way. I love this guy. I think he's a great comedian. Um, Not so much anymore. I should say preface, I say he was. The thing about Jerry Seinfeld is Jerry Seinfeld was great and known for the show Seinfeld, which obviously meant him on to be a big success. The thing is, though, the guy became so rich that the thing that made him successful, joking about ordinary people's lives and things like that he couldn't do that anymore because he's so rich, he doesn't live like normal people. He can't go to the bathroom without going having a security guard, that type stuff, right? And so it made this, it made Jerry Seinfeld basically become out of touch. And I think you could see that in a lot of his press interviews, right now with this movie. There's a lot of statements here saying that you're like, boomer alert, basically. And it also is very apparent with this movie. However, I was kind of excited about this movie because I didn't hear any of the negative reviews or any of that stuff till after I watched it. I just kind of watched it on Netflix. I watched a little bit of it before I went to a concert, and then I came back from the concert, went to work, did a bunch of stuff, and now I finally had time to finish the movie, right? And I heard Jerry Seinfeld directed a movie. It's about the origin of Pop-Tarts, and I enjoy movies like Air and things like that. And I kind of like the idea of like parodying these product movies, these movies about the origin of a product we know. It's kind of a goofy idea that Hollywood's been making this a trend recently, but it's also kind of fun, and I enjoy it. So I was open to him parodying that. The dude's 7 years old and making his first directorial debut. That's really cool, And so, you don't see a lot of that. So I'm always going to respect this movie for that alone, seeing a guy his age come out and direct a movie like this, make it happen, You could not like this movie. You could hate it. You could think it's the worst movie you ever seen. But the fact that Jerry Seinfeld, at 7 years old, said, fuck it, I'm going to make a movie. He wrote and directed it and starred in it, and he made it happen. And that's worth something, And so, yeah, that's really the only thing I have good to say about it, other than there's a couple lines and jokes and references in this movie that were funny. And there's funny people in this movie. I cannot preface that enough. There are funny people in this movie. Not that this movie was funny. There are funny people in this movie that I like seeing in movies. Not that they were funny in this movie, but they're funny. And I really can't stress that enough. So, let me say, what's wrong with this movie? This movie is, like I said, about the origin of Pop-Tarts. It's a very fake version of the 1960s about the origin of Pop-Tarts. None of this is real. It's very absurdist comedy. But the reason this movie doesn't work is because, even though I said it's absurd, it's not absurd enough. It feels like the tone of this movie feels too serious. Like, what I mean by that is there's jokes happening, but the comedic energy just feels like it needs more of a silly vibe to it. And it's hard to explain what that is, but it just didn't work. And a lot of the references in this movie are like shit that no one understands. I'm sorry, this shit is all like 60s dated references. I'm sorry, but if you like, the audience of this movie that understands all these references doesn't know what the shit Netflix is or is in a nursing home. Like, I joke a little bit, but like, it's very bizarre who this movie's made for, The normal people that watch Netflix movies aren't going to turn this movie on and go, wow. I get that 60s references. No, they're not. And it's really bizarre. Some of it worked, some of it I understood, but even then, there were parts of the jokes where that worked. I was like, I'm still missing something. It's a lot of weird, out of touch humor, and that's what I mean earlier when I said Jerry Seinfeld's out of touch. Like, a lot of the humor in this movie is out of touch. Some of it is really bizarre, where like at the end of the movie they parody January 6th, but there's like no joke to it. Basically, the context of that scene is all the cereal mascots are mad. They think they're going to be replaced by Kellogg's introducing this product for Pop Tarts. So they storm the building like January 6th, and there's like people like throwing like smoke bombs, and the Hugh Grant's character is supposed to be Tiny the Tiger. He's dressed like the QAnon shaman. It's like there's no joke to it, and it's really bizarre. Like, why did they parodying January 6th? It feels like a joke that maybe was supposed to be like absurd, but it just was delivered wrong. But it's also like there's no joke to it. There's no, and like there might be people watch that scene go, wow, a political event. You know, what's the political commentary? I think you're reaching when you say there's political commentary, like in the scene. Like there isn't any political commentary. It's just, you know, it's just clearly meant to be like an absurd thing, referencing this horrific thing in a weird way. Like, I don't know, it's like if we played 9/11 for grabs, jokes a little bit. So it's not obviously 9/11's not way more horrific, but it'd just be weird, like if a movie came out a few years after 9/11 and just started parodying it without any bite to it. And that's basically the way I felt like watching this fucking scene in this movie. I don't know. It's freaking weird. It's just a really bizarre movie that at first I was kind of on board by. Like, I watched it for the first 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, we're origin of Pop Tarts. There's some comedic jokes that are working for me. But then the longer the movie went on, the more it lost me. The comedic energy just started dying, and there were so many funny people in this movie. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld, Hugh Grant, Melissa McCarthy, you know, it's hit or miss, but she still can be very funny if she's given the right roles and material, and it's just like none of it worked. It was just a fucking nightmare, this movie. I really can't switch that up. I respect this movie for its ambitions and its ideas, but it's one of those movies where it's a movie that's very ambitious, has great ideas, and it all just fails in execution, crumbles upon itself, and it's just not worth your time. It's just really not, but it's a movie that I thought had a lot of interesting things to say and ideas to maybe explore that really didn't come across properly, and it failed. And I felt very disappointed in this movie, unfortunately.